News on the Iran nuclear deal front this week, as President Biden even responded to somebody just in a photo handshake line about whether or not he would announce that it was dead. We can go ahead and throw B1 up on the screen. So you can see there, Biden is saying that it is dead, but he's not going to, quote, announce that it's dead because it's a long story. Again, that's a quote. Why don't we just roll the clip so you can judge for yourself? This is B2.
President Biden, could you please announce that JCPOA is dead? Can you just announce that?
No.
No, why not?
No. A lot of reasons. It is dead. We're not going to announce it. Long story. We're going to make sure
We just don't want any deals with the Muslims. No deals. They don't represent us. They're not our government.
they have a nuclear weapon.
Ryan, I want to read a quote from you from the Axios report. It says, in late October, U.S. envoy for Iran, Rob Malley, said the administration is not going to, quote, waste time on trying to revive the Iran nuclear deal at this time, considering Tehran's crackdown on protesters, Iranian support for Russia's war in Ukraine, and Iran's positions on its nuclear program. This is an argument. It's a version of the argument that was made against proponents of the JCPOA for years on the right, which is that you are doing business with a regime that has countless human rights abuses, is aligned against the United States, aligned against Israel, and they're now invoking very similar arguments, very similar points, because it has become politically less convenient for them to pursue the JCPOA right now. Isn't that essentially their argument?
You got them. I mean, fair enough. That's a clean shot. It shows that it's a matter of degrees, that it's all relative here, because it was all, like you said, it was already the case that Iran was supportive of actors around the region that were hostile to the interests of the United States. Whether that's Hamas, Hezbollah, you could argue the Houthis, like the elements within Iraq that are hostile to kind of U.S. allies inside Iraq, the Iranian hostility to Israel, refusing to recognize it, constantly threatening it with obliteration. That has been a condition of the Iranian Republic, since the revolution. Like that's accurate. And so, to say that, well, now they've gone too far. And also, domestically, it's not as if they've been kind of bastions of liberty.
Right.
Like they haven't been engaging in these types of crackdowns, although in 2019, there were there was an extraordinary domestic crackdown of popular unrest.
And during the Obama administration, that happened as well.
In 2009, very early, there was that Green Revolution that was suppressed violently as well. And so, what Malley is saying here is that, okay, now it's gone too far, because that the support of Russia and the extent and length of the crackdown is too far. So they are, in fact, like you said, legitimating that argument that they're too bad to work with. Whereas people who are on the side of the deal, if they're going to be principled about it, ought to argue, yes, they have always been bad.
Right.
This is about a nuclear deal, and it is about keeping nuclear weapons from a bad and dangerous regime. And in fact, the worse they are, the more reason there is to strike a nuclear deal with them, because we're not striking a nuclear deal because we love them, because we're good friends with the mullahs and we just want to reduce sanctions on them. We would be doing it so that they don't have a nuclear weapon, so that the world is a safer place.
And there's basically no other option.
So gas prices are cheaper, but that's that's neither
it's
here
always
nor there.
incidental.
Of course. Incidentally. But yeah, it's not. So Malley's kind of argument there recasts it a little bit as a favor to Iran, which now I think what's actually going on here is yes, and I think just the domestic politics are too extreme. Like if you're a bad regime, but you're not on the front pages, then the U.S. can strike a deal with you domestically and get away with it.
Haiti, for instance.
If you can do whatever you want in Haiti because nobody's going to cover that.
Yeah.
But if they're on the front pages, then it's more difficult politically for you to strike that deal. So that's what I think is going on. And so I think by them saying it's dead, that's an acknowledgement of that political reality. And also, is leverage in the negotiations. Like, because Iran does want this, and nothing's ever dead when it comes to diplomacy. Ask Manchin and the Build Back Better thing. I was dead, and then it passed.
That's right. Well, it was interesting because you said it is a concession, really, that Iran wants this, that Iran obviously sees that there's something good for Iran in this. This is not just a clear-cut win for the United States, and that's not the argument that proponents of the JCPOA are making sort of in the honest sense. And the last point I think we should absolutely touch on here is the role Russia has played in all of this. It was a very strange situation when they were this was heating up earlier this year, the negotiations of the Iran nuclear deal, and Russia is basically mediating because of some of the parameters from the original deal during the Obama administration, which Trump scrapped. It was a huge part of his campaign, actually, was just scrapping the Iran nuclear deal, and he did it. The Biden administration has been trying to bring it back, and Russia has been in the middle. So how much of this is also the Biden administration just saying, listen, this is basically impossible right now anyway, because our middleman, we're basically at war with them. We're in a proxy war with them.
Right, and they're also, we could put up the third element here, they're also engaging in public displays of atrocities, which, again, like makes it relatively that much more difficult for for the Biden administration to kind of deal with a government that is out here, publicly executing people for participating in these protests. So they have started. This is NBC News here. Iran's government has spent months violently cracking down on protest groups in the country. Now it has started hanging people in public, an approach some demonstrators and experts see as a desperate attempt to crush the dissent that has posed an unprecedented challenge to the clerical regime. So U.S. media is still framing this as a desperate move from the Iranian regime here. Either way, it's atrocious.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and again, it is quite interesting to see that leveraged in the JCPOA negotiations, which actually, I get the point that nothing's ever really dead, and that this is obviously, I think, probably in some way a ploy to nudge the negotiations if they can be nudged, but I just don't see this budging at all for now. And the biggest player in that really seems to be the war in Ukraine.
Yeah, and so their executions by hanging are far from rare in Iran, NBC reports. Amnesty International says it put 314 people to death last year, the most in the world after China, although the United States does continue to execute people at a pretty fierce clip as well. So that's our company, is China and Iran when it comes to the death penalty.
Although there's a matter of due process and trials, I imagine that differs.
It's true. I'm sure that our bureaucrats are making no mistakes on the march toward death row.
Believe me, I will never defend that. It is atrocious. And in Iran, these, in a lot of cases, are mere protesters in support of women against the regime oppressing women. So just unbelievable story as it continues to unfold and affect the JCPOA. Yeah,
and the last piece, we can put up the fourth element. What we're seeing is an increasingly tight relationship developing between Russia and Iran. They have been soft allies for a long time, partly enemy of my enemy kind of situation. But now you're seeing the military cooperation ramp up as Russia is cornered and has few outlets and allies. Here's the Guardian reporting that they're boosting military links, exchanging Russia exchanging military technology with Iran in exchange for the help with their drone war effort.
Right, and so you can see why the Biden administration is invoking that in, again, the JCPOA negotiations, precisely because they're saying, why are we dealing with, first of all, somebody we are fighting a proxy war against to the tune of billions and billions of dollars? Why are they negotiating this deal for us that's making it impossible to do? And secondly, we don't want it to be a reward for a regime that is sort of actively engaged in bad things. But at the end of the day, from my perspective, all of that is a concession that it's a concession that they've just decided to draw the line on Iran being bad here, when all along that was the argument that they were saying, oh, don't worry about it. There's a much more honest stance, and it's the one you laid out at the beginning of the segment. But that's not the one that they've taken.
Right, and it's not my job to give advice to the American empire, but it is interesting that their inability to create normal relations with Iran over the years is now complicating their war effort in Ukraine in multiple ways, both because it's complicating their effort to wind down the war in Yemen, but also now pushing Iran and Russia into tighter cooperation. You know, if you're going to be waging wars in Yemen, in Ukraine, saber rattling around Taiwan, you would rather, I think, not have Iran allied with Russia at this moment. And if instead of this kind of hostile saber rattling relationship that we've had with them over the decades, they had instead taken the Iran deal from 2015 and then built on top of that, you know, new diplomatic advances, because Iran, unlike Saudi Arabia, has an educated middle class that remains pro-American. It's an utterly bizarre situation in which a significant amount of the population is favorable toward the United States. If you remember, after 9/11, there were where a bunch of Saudis were involved, and Saudi government officials seemed to also have been involved. Those are our allies. Our enemies, there were candlelight vigils all over Iran, in sympathy with what had happened on 9/11 in the United States. If we had developed that into normal relations, our war effort both in Yemen and in Ukraine would be strengthened. So like I said, not my job to help the U.S. war effort, but it's like you got to pick your battles at some point.
Yeah.
And we just and I think partly significantly this was related to our relationship with Israel. Israel and Iran, absolutely, mortal enemies.
Yeah.
And so we kind of outsourced our diplomacy there.
Hey guys, ready or not, 2024 is fully upon us now, and Saagar and I have been brainstorming ways that we can really up our game for this critical election.
Yeah, we rely on our premium subs to expand our coverage, to add staff, to upgrade the studio. We just want to give you the best independent coverage of this election, which is possible. So if you can help us out, become a premium subscriber today, breakingpoints.com, or the link is down here in the description video. It really means the world to us, and if you like what we're all about, this is the best possible way to keep us 100% independent, working only for you.